Hey there. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is From the Logo. I'm Kirby. That's Colton and Riley on your screen as well. Today, we're going to start off by asking you guys a question or maybe a series of questions, some advice. What do you guys want to see on this channel? We've been doing a lot of kind of week to week reactions of the games, of the, how things are shaking out this season. Do you want to see more of that? Do you want to see more depth chart breakdown type videos? Should we focus on the Blazers or the rest of the league? Let us know in the comments what you guys want to see. What kind of content you guys want to see? Do you guys have anything to add?
Do you guys want to see pop culture? Do you guys want to see just our rantings about like movies? What do you guys want to see? Mostly basketball, but we could throw in some flavor if you want.
Yeah, we should just go straight like Joe Rogan podcast. I've been trying to convince these guys to take psilocybin before every podcast, but they won't do it. So
Yeah.
yeah, let us know. We were also thinking about renaming the podcast potentially, but not so sure about that one. One of our favorite names, we when we first started the podcast, we were debating between naming this From the Logo and Two Quick Teas in honor of Blazers legend Rasheed Wallace. We ended up making that more of a segment
Segment.
on the show. Yeah, but maybe we'll change it to that. I don't know. I guess stay tuned for that. We'll keep pondering that one, mulling that one over, and yeah,
No
let us know in
one
the.
no one on the Blazers is shooting from the logo. Like that's it. That is not the way this team is built, for better or for worse. So I don't
We got to
know.
change the name to Highlight Dunk Package or something because this team went from shooting to not being able to shoot at all.
We'll just call it the strong nose defense show.
Although, transitioning this into the
Okay, I
Blazers,
was wondering, are we done? We
that
transitioning? Colton has a rant, I think.
strong nose defense is not something that the Blazers have been playing as of late. Um, I'm not going to pin it all on one player, but it is interesting to me that this coincides with the return of Anfernee Simons.
Oh,
Since Anfernee Simons has come back, I mean, we could read the scores out. We gave up 118, 131, 122, 132, 125, and I believe 110. Has he played in 5 or 6 games since he came back? I think it's five, I think it's six. So 110 was the lowest points we've given up since Ant's been back. That's
Not
not
very
good.
good.
Not very good. Not even close to what the Blazers were playing earlier in the season. The one game Ant played early in the season, in the first game of the season, we gave up 123. So I'm not trying to say it's all Ant, but we are 0-6 or 0-7 or whatever when Ant plays. Um,
six. They played 6 games, and yeah, they've lost all of them.
yeah. So I think more so what I'm trying to say is the since the players have come back healthy, Grant, Ant, Brogdon, Aiton, the roles for the players that were playing really hard while they were out have changed, and nobody's really sure of their role. And that is more evidenced by the game last night against the Golden State Warriors. Scoot Henderson came in at the end of the first quarter. He played probably his best shift he's played in the NBA, and he scored 10 points in 10 minutes in the first half.
I
And
was just looking at his splits, at Scoot's splits, and like in the month of December. Oh man, I wish I could remember specifically. It was like his averages were looked really decent, like for a rookie. It was kind of crazy. I realize it's a bit of a short window, but yeah, he's really turned it around to feel kind of quietly. Yeah, in December, averaging 15 points, um, 4.3 assists, 41% shooting, 30% from deep. So I mean, that's for a 19-year-old rookie starting around into form.
yeah, but should Scoot Henderson, when he doesn't have foul trouble and isn't injured, should he ever play 21 minutes in a rebuilding year when, he played well in the first quarter, in the first half? No. Scoot sat on the bench a long time last night, and there was a lot of Shaden didn't play that well for the first half. Ant was going 1-on-5 3 times in a row, dribbling. Scoot played great, and his reward was sitting on the bench. And I know that we're trying to develop the trade value of players like Brogdon, even Grant, maybe even Ant, but Scoot should never play 21 minutes in a half, especially when he's playing well and isn't in foul trouble. I don't understand Chauncey's thought process behind that. I mean, we had a 3 guard lineup at the end of the game that was Ant, Brogdon, and Shaden.
His
What?
thought process is if I put Scoot in the game, we might win.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and then the fact that he didn't call a timeout after the Curry missed free throw is insanity to me. Maybe it's
That
because
was
he,
bizarre.
he didn't have confidence in his drawn plays out of a timeout. Maybe that was more likely that we scored on a broken play than a Chauncey Billups drawn up play. But that astounded me. I couldn't believe we didn't call a timeout. Chauncey has not been impressing me as much lately. And, I don't know if that's, again, the roles are not as defined because so many guys are kind of mid-tier trying to show that they belong. But I have not been as impressed, especially with the defense. And that really has all coincided with Ant coming back. I'm sorry. It's just the numbers. It's the truth.
Quick note on that before you go, Riley. Quick note on that Shaden last minute take. It was a good look. Fajibski just made a great play. Honestly, I don't think you could have gotten a better look out of a timeout. I don't really have any problem with that call. Watching it live, I was like, why aren't they calling a timeout? But then the result from it, I was like, okay, I mean, that's as good of a look as you're going to get in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a little bit though, Curb, you and I, about how this team just doesn't really look like it knows how to close out a game. Yeah, they look like they stay in like every game. They're competitive, almost every night. They fight hard. They go on runs that are really impressive. They show flashes of playing really well, cohesively on the offensive end and together on the defensive end. But to the defensive point, it feels like just maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, when we were talking about the Blazers defense and how well they were playing together. And we looked it up, and they were 5th in the NBA in defensive rating. And the problem is that they were like 27th, 28th in the league in offense. But now, just since Ant came back, they've fallen to 19th in the NBA in defensive rating. And that's not good. That shows that, they're really regressing on the defensive end. And it seems to with the fact that they have more shooters back that don't play nearly as well together on defense.
I don't really know if it's a sign of regressing so much as just a team that doesn't really have an identity. They're young. They haven't had this group of guys together yet this season really until the last week or so. And I think that it's too small of a sample size for like a month to say this team has like a defensive identity. I mean, it's obviously not good to see the stats start to regress, but I think that identity is going to come more as this team actually plays together. Hopefully they all stay healthy and they start to figure out, like you mentioned, Colton, it doesn't really seem like a lot of the young guys know their roles now that Ant is back. And that's just a sign of a young team that hasn't played together very much, which is exactly what this team is.
True. Yeah, that's true. Go ahead, Brett.
Kind of to Colton's point, though, I mean, it's, when Scoot was in there, we were the 5th best team in the league defensively. And with Ant in there, we're 19th best team in the league defensively. So maybe Scoot really should be playing more minutes, is I guess the punchline.
But I mean, his last few games, he hasn't really. It's only like the last 2 games that he's dropped in minutes. So
he was dropping at all. He should be playing 34 minutes a game. I mean, he should not be playing 21. There's no way.
Agreed. We're too guard heavy, man. It's been the problem with the Blazers for years, and they just have too much talent at the guard position. But like I texted you last night, at least Anfernee and Jeremy Grant are putting up those juicy box scores, getting a little bit more interest from the rest of the league. Maybe driving
Jeremy's
up.
Been playing pretty good, really good. Jeremy has been playing good and less ISOing, more getting. He's still ISOing, but getting more points off catch and shoots. And I really like how he's been playing. He's averaging almost 23 points per game. And he might be, like we've talked about, a candidate to go out on a trade here. I thought that I think that Kamara has just still continued to impress with his
Yeah.
defense. He was hounding Curry. The Blazers broke Curry's streak of 268 straight games with
Yeah.
a three-pointer. And a
Crazy.
lot of that was because Kamara was face guarding Curry the whole length of the floor. Curry had an awful game, and he was being defended pretty well, but Clay, of course, woke up out of his coffin and started hitting some threes, and Wiggins hit like 3 step back threes in the
That
game.
Jackson dude, Jackson Davis or
Jackson
whatever, went
Davis.
off.
Yeah, so there was some things, that probably could have swung the Blazers' way. There was an out of bounds call late. The last 2-minute report showed that the ball went out of bounds off Steph Curry, but of course the Warriors got the ball and then scored
I
or got
know.
fouled.
I saw that in live time, and of course, I was sailing the Pirates seas, and so I had to watch the Warriors announcers call that game, and they didn't even, of course, they
Of
didn't even
course.
mention the fact that it could have been off of Steph. They were just lamenting that it wasn't a foul, and they're saying like, "Okay, I guess they get the ball at least." But I was like, "That went off Curry!" Like I was sitting there by myself, no confirmation anywhere. I was like, "How is that not being looked at?"
Yeah. So that
Because it's
sucks,
the
but
Warriors.
I just want to get your guys' opinions really quick on I mean, I don't want to make this the Scoot show, but because he's kind of coming out of his shell and looking better and better and better, I just want to shout out his defense because he's a rookie, and yes, he's fouled a lot, but some of them have been questionable because he's a rookie, right? The guy looks like a bulldog out there, and I
Yeah.
know the stats aren't as much showing it as far as team defense, but you can tell the guy competes on the defensive end. And as the offense comes together, as he gets older, continues growing into his body, he's jacked. I'm just so excited. I'm glad that people are starting to get to see the real Scoot. I think he was a little overwhelmed and nervous early in the season.
He had an injury too that didn't help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's like we've just talked about, he's really not playing a whole lot. He's averaging 25 minutes a game, 26 minutes a game, which is it's a little bit of a loaded stat because honestly, he's playing even less now. He played a little bit more earlier on before the injury. But anyway, about 25 minutes a game and still getting half a steal. So you extrapolate that over a whole game, he's getting his hands in there, he's getting his nose in there, and he's playing good defense. So yeah, I really like the way that he looks on the defensive end. We just need to see more of it. And I mean, kind of to Kirby's point too, like it's so early in his career. It's so early in a weird season. It is hard to say how much of this is by design, how much of this is just trying to increase trade value for other players. Maybe this is what Scoot needs. Maybe someone knows better than we do. But I do feel like at some point this year, maybe it's after the trades, maybe it's just once the season's over, I mean, it's already over, but yeah, after the All-Star break, we need to see him get some serious run and get out there and put some minutes up and see what he can do, because we need to start building his confidence and letting him take over some leadership of the team. Right now, a lot of the time it kind of feels like Malcolm Brogdon and Chauncey Billups' team, and I'd really like to see it turn a little bit more into Scoot's team.
Kobe Bryant averaged 15 and a half minutes a game in his rookie year. Scoot's getting 26.1 minutes a game. I think we're fine. I think he's a young rookie. I think him coming off the bench, it's fine. I don't think they're not going to be winning any championships this year. They're not going to be making any runs this year. It's just all about watching him progress, take the little steps, and maybe also kind of protect him a little bit. I think that's maybe why they're having him come off the bench and limiting his minutes and just giving him little tastes and then taking him out maybe when you wouldn't necessarily want to. But I think they're maybe following, I'm no expert, so I don't know if I have any reason to really believe this, but maybe they're following a formula, a formula that's worked in the NBA of young, players with a lot of upside, but not much experience, and trying to get them adjusted to the game, without overexposing them or without, risking injury. I don't really know if that's a concern or not, but I'm not too worried about it. And on top of all that, the highest paid player, one of the highest, $100 million contract, Anfernee Simons, veteran player, Malcolm Brogdon, Shaedon Sharpe, these are the players that are above him in the depth chart in the rotation. So it's not like it's doesn't make any sense. There's reasons why he's being limited. And it's just remember, it's not going to last forever. Like, you just got to be patient with this guy. He's in his first year, and just think what he might do next year. You know, if Simons, whatever, something happens, I think there has to be the log jam has to be cleared at some point. But I don't think it necessarily has to be right now.
Yeah, it probably doesn't. But my counter argument, because a lot of what you said makes sense. I'm not sure if Chauncey has that super genius villains.
Maybe not. Maybe he's just trying to do what he can to keep his job too, which he might think. You know, you don't put a 19-year-old rookie out there and expect him to win games and keep me as the coach of the Blazers. You got to look at that side too.
I would just argue that last night, especially the first half, Shaden was kind of a no-show. He turned it on at the end of the game. Simons was, man, he was going full dive into the defense chuck mode, which honestly he hasn't done that as bad this season. There's times where he ISOs where it's kind of frustrating, but last night it was terrible. He was driving into the teeth of the defense with no plan. Neither of them were playing that well. Brogdon was he was hitting threes, and actually they brought Scoot in with Brogdon at times and played Brogdon off ball for a little bit, which was good because Brogdon's a good shooter. But I just think that nobody had it going. And in a night like that, when your rookie, scores 10 points in a row and hasn't missed yet, and then you pull him out and don't play him the rest of the half, I want him to build confidence when he's having a good night and helping the team out there. So yes, I'm probably getting nitpicky. It was just majorly frustrating to me to look down at the box score when he had 10 points on like 4-4 shooting in the first half or in the first quarter leading into the second quarter. And then he doesn't play the rest of the quarter, and then he ends up with 21 minutes. To me, that's just cringy. But I'm trying to keep the bigger plan in the back of my mind, which is to grow trade value for players and to trade them. But it just sucks because your rookie's finally saying, "Hey, I'm here. It took me a little bit," and then you're like, "Okay, I want to see more," and then 21 minutes. So that is probably me being nitpicky. I get what you're saying there.
Hard to be patient though when you got a guy like that on the bench. How do you guys feel about Anfernee's performance so far? I don't really think it's as bad as maybe some people are going after. It hasn't resulted in any wins, which is a problem, but he's putting up big numbers. Obviously he's getting a lot of shots up, but he's putting up huge numbers. He's passing his assist to turnover isn't amazing, but he's getting some assists at least. His defense is a question mark, but he's really showing that he's just an explosive scorer at the very least. That's pretty good for trade value. What do you guys think about his performance so far?
I think he's doing probably what he feels like he needs to do, and maybe what management has hinted he needs to do, which is to increase his trade value so that hopefully he can go somewhere good, somewhere that's going to be a good fit for him. I don't really think he's the problem. I don't really think any of the guards on their own are the problem. I think the problem, as has been discussed, is that there's too many of them, not enough minutes to go around. And I can't believe we're in this situation.
That's
again.
what we should rename the podcast. Too many guards.
Right when they do that, we're gonna have 2 left, and then we're gonna have to change the name again.
The perennial problem for the Portland Trailblazers: too many guards, not enough bigs, and so many of these problems. I just feel like we circle back around to that same issue, honestly, because in those moments, like you were talking about, Colton, against Golden State, where the guards didn't have it going, the shooting wasn't going, they couldn't penetrate the defense. You have to have someone to throw it to make something happen down low. I mean, no great team in history has not had someone to throw it to. Even Golden State with their 5-guard lineup, they could throw it down low to Draymond and he'd kick someone in the nuts and score. And I mean, that's how they won championships. And we just don't have anything like that right now.
Now we enter the DeAndre Ayton chat session or section of the pod.
I feel like Jeremy is pretty much drifting around the 3-point line most of the game, and DeAndre can't even seem to establish position. And when he does, they don't throw him the ball. So we've talked about this ad nauseum. It's kind of a big problem that maybe will resolve itself when the guards get a little bit more experience. But I mean, everyone's pretty much healthy now, and we're still having that same problem where Ayton's looking soft and Jeremy's looking like he wants to shoot threes. And we just don't have anyone to throw it down to. And that's what we need. So when we do make these trades, when we make this Anfernee, Jeremy, whether Ayton's involved or whatever, we need to be getting some size. And I've always been the like take the best talent on the board guy pretty much. But it might be time to not for one draft or one trade round. We need to get someone who fits the position because otherwise we're just going to end up with a bunch of talented guards and not enough minutes for them.
Especially especially at this point, because I feel like the guards, if you're not on the Scoot and Shaden are the guards of the future bandwagon, what are you even doing? I mean, it's clear, it's obvious. Those are going to be the two guys going forward. They should be, at the very least. If they're not, that's a whole different discussion, I guess. Man, I would be so upset if they chose Anfernee or someone else or Brogdon over those two.
I just want to touch in really quick on Anfernee before we do anything else, because I agree with a lot of what you guys
yeah, I guess we didn't really get your take on that.
No, I agree with a lot of what you guys said. It's not gonna be that long of a tangent here, but I think that you're right. Anfernee is an explosive scorer, and again, this is something we've talked about on this podcast before, and it's hard on this team because he's, like you said, the established guy, the $100 million guy. His skill set is probably best used off the bench as the combo guard that scores. That's just, I think he's like a super
Jamal Crawford.
Clarkson. He's like a more athletic version of, Tyler Hero and those kind of players that are Tyrese Maxey, which Tyrese Maxey is starting now too, but how this team is built, you can see it in his play style. And you said it, kind of not a lot of assist to turnover ratio. The assist to turnover ratio isn't that great, and that's kind of his play style. Let's just say it. Like, he's a scorer, and that's what he's really good at, and he's amazing at it. But sometimes that comes at the expense of ball stopping, which we've seen in the past with CJ. And I don't think the Blazers want to go on that offensive route again, where it's one guard creating over other driving 1-on-5. So Anfernee has played well, but the defensive numbers speak for themselves. It's not all on him, like you said, Riley. I agree with your end result, Kirby. I still think should be Scoot and Shaden going forward, unless some kind of thing is unlocked and you say, wow, Ant and Shaden play amazing together, which we haven't seen that.
Yeah.
That's the thing I want to say. Since Ant has come back, the first couple of games when Ant came back, Shaden was playing well. But the last couple, when Ant's been back, Grant's been back, and Brogdon, Shaden has had to take a back seat. Oftentimes, you look at the box score, he's got 7 shots near the end of the fourth quarter, and he just sits there and doesn't get to touch the ball most of the quarter because it's a lot of the Ant show, which I don't like that. I like moving the ball. That's the kind of offense I like to watch. I think it's the most efficient and effective. So I think Shaden sometimes gets the short end of the stick when the vets are taking a lot of the shots too.
Yeah, you making me think here about that. Your point about moving the ball, not letting it stick, being a more effective player. That's a good point you just made, because Scoot and Shaden, the ball doesn't stick in either one of those guys' hands, and Anfernee, it really does. And that's an exciting prospect to imagine Scoot and Shaden out there both playing, crazy defensive abilities, both very much willing passers, both able to attack the basket with crazy ferocity and athleticism. I don't see where Ant fits in there with that. I know there's a lot of Blazer fans that have love for the guy, and I do too. And he puts up some crazy numbers. Like, you look at his box scores, it's like, whew. And also, maybe the sample size is too small with him. Maybe let him rep out the rest of the year, maybe, and see how it plays out. But if you're really looking long term and you're being practical about it, it's pretty obvious. It's got to be Scoot and Shaden. I just don't see a space on the team for Anfernee long term. Guys like Kamara, those guys fit seamlessly. I even like Thibault, man. I don't really expect to be able to keep him for very long, but it would be. I like his play style. I think he fits along beautifully alongside those kinds of guys.
It's my opinion that I think Anfernee, Grant, and Brogdon, all three know at some level that they're really playing for trade value right now. Maybe
I agree with
maybe
I agree with
Anfernee,
everyone, but yeah.
maybe Anfernee the least of all because
Yeah.
he's been on the team for a good amount of time. But I just have a hard time believing that he's dumb enough or confident enough to not see the writing on the wall that, you know, it's got to be Scoot and Shaden for the future, and it's just a fit issue. And I mean, I will root for that guy wherever he goes. I really like Anfernee. He's been a good player for the team, but yeah, it just doesn't seem like the long-term prospects for the Blazers. It just does not the right play style. He's a little slow, like not slow physically, but he slows the ball down, and he likes the ISO ball. I don't know if he just played with Dame for too long or what, but it's definitely been his style. He does not move the ball, and this seems like the way the team's going is a little bit more free-flowing offense, quicker.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned Kamara. I wonder how the Blazers are going to look at the draft going into this season, because you're right. We're getting to the point where we can't just draft the top point guard in the crew. There's not this draft though. That's okay. It's kind of not a crapshoot, but it's not like a strong. There's a superstar point guard and you have to draft him like this draft was, where we were sitting at 3 and Scoot was in the top tier. It doesn't look
Who else
like
are you gonna take? Taylor Hendricks or some bullshit? It wasn't gonna happen.
yeah. So this draft is good because, especially sitting where the Blazers are right now, I know people don't love talking about the draft this early. I just want to keep you guys, everybody watching, just keep an ear for these names here. We got Alex Sarr, which he's the probably number one pick. He's kind of an Evan Mobley type player.
What was your like tank for Sar thing you
Fall far
had?
for Sarr.
What was it?
Fall far for Sarr.
There it is. Yeah.
Pretty
So
good.
and he is good, and he's maybe not like a generational number one pick, but he can impact the defense in a lot of ways. He's 7'1". Then there's a couple other guys to keep your ears peeled for, and one is Buzelis, which Buzelis is a 6'10" wing. He's like a Franz Wagner player, and he's a good shooter. He just had a game where he hit a game winner in the G League, which he played just. I like him a lot, and I think that he's right about where the Blazers would be picking 6'8" to 6'10" wing. And then Ron Holland, he's another player out there that's another explosive wing, but he's kind of less of a shooter, more of kind of an athlete, which you say, how does that fit, right, with Scoot and Shaden? And there's a couple other names out there on the board, but my point is, this is a draft where we're probably going to get to take a swing at wings and maybe a big. If we're in the top, we can take Alex Sarr.
They better.
You guys will be happy, but Kamara hopefully fits in around those guys. The other guy that I'm thinking about is Zachary Risaker, and he's a 6'9" wing, and he's from France. He's a good shooting player with size. He's been compared to Michael Porter Jr., which would fit the Blazers' future amazingly. That would be a perfect player to slot in. So there's a couple guys up there that I really like for the fit for the Blazers if we can get lucky enough.
Bro, France is putting out the prospects. I guess Kamara is Belgian, excuse me, but they're putting out some serious prospects lately. Sarr is French too.
Yep.
It's like most of the best basketball players in the world are coming out of France right now. It's a little different.
Don't forget the legendary Rupert.
Yeah.
You're memeing, but he could be
And Wembanyama.
yeah, and Wemby. Who talks
I
more?
guess him too. I guess him as well.
Speaking
Whatever.
of
Well,
international prospects, what did you guys think of Giannis and the game ball fiasco?
Oh, so I've always been kind of a Giannis fan. I've always liked him. I like a lot about his story. I've liked his attitude for a number of years. And even though he, took Dame away from us, I've still been like a Giannis guy. I've always liked him pretty well. This made me think less of him. It really did. It did some damage to his reputation for me. Kind of similar to what happened with Patrick Mahomes with his little meltdown this week, where it's just this. I don't know if it's entitlement. I don't know if it's just like uncontrolled rage issues, but something snapped in Giannis that I haven't really seen before. And he's making all these excuses like, I didn't want the ball for myself. I wanted it for Damian Lillard. But Damian Lillard's just standing there like, I don't care about the ball. What are you doing? He's running into the tunnel like he's gonna rip someone's head off. He's all veiny and popped out. It really looked like someone having a roid rage issue to me. And I don't know what his deal is. I don't know what the fallout from that is. I know the ball didn't go to Damian Lillard. It went to Giannis's mom, even though he said he didn't want the ball for himself. He wanted it for Damian. The whole thing just seemed weird. It didn't pass the sniff test to me. He wanted that ball for some reason that he didn't want to explain, or he went into an uncontrolled rage for a reason he didn't want to explain. And it was a bad look for him, in my opinion.
Kirby, do you want to chime in?
go for it.
I am interestingly enough going to take the opposite mindset here. Yes, he probably went overboard. However, he scored the Bucks franchise record points. And I mean, he scored 64 points in an NBA game. There's video out there of one of the Pacers assistants. Giannis asks him for the ball, and the Pacers assistant literally smirks and walks away with the ball. I mean, I think I'd be a little mad too. I'm not going to ever score 64 points in an NBA game that we know of, right? But if I did
that's optimism right
yeah,
there.
of course. I still have time to make the league. If I scored that many points in a game, I mean, I think it's common knowledge and practice. I was listening to our boy Paul George, podcast P, on a podcast saying that he would want the game ball and he thinks it's common practice that if a rookie scores their first points in the game, they get the game ball. If it's common to give somebody the game ball. So why were the Pacers being D-bags and not just giving them the ball? Like,
Because they had a rookie who scored his first point in the game.
is that what it was?
Yeah. They had a rookie who scored the first NBA points and took the ball. There's 2 game balls too. So one of them goes to the rookie who scored his first point. One of them goes to Giannis so he can give it to Damian Lillard or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't hear that excuse. That's funny. I'll have to look that up. But I still think, I don't know, man. I get it. Scoring your first bucket is a big thing, but 64 in a franchise record? I don't know, man. That's pretty crazy.
They both deserved a game ball. They totally both deserved a game ball, and that's why there's 2 to give out. The thing is not, for me, it's not that Giannis wanted the ball. That's fine. He deserved a ball for sure. Damian Lillard probably not. Giannis probably did. But it should have been a discussion. And the fact that he was getting all vein pop out and screaming at people and getting in people's faces and chasing the visiting team into the tunnel, it's unusual and it's weird. And it's not something that someone who's thinking clearly does. And he put on like 70 pounds of muscle in a year and a half. So I think a random test is in order, in my opinion.
Wow.
Why do grown men, millionaires verging on billionaires, care so much about a basketball? It's like, come on, people. What are you gonna do with it? Just have it chill in your trophy room for 40 or 50 years until you sell it for charity or whatever.
He said to appreciate greatness. He wanted to give it to Damian Lillard because he hit the 5th most threes in NBA history was his reasoning. So
yeah, and Dame was just sitting there with the most bewildered look on his face. It's
Yeah.
amazing. The video is incredible because
was
Giannis is like red-faced, veins popping, screaming in someone's face, and Damian Lillard's sitting there just like watching his parents about to freaking kill each other in front of
Listen
him.
to this quote. This is funny because I'm glad you made me look this up. You didn't make me, but I'm glad you told me that he wanted to give it to Dame. He said, Giannis was asked about it, and he said, I understand. When you score your first point in the NBA, you want to have the ball or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, you're talking about the guy that just skipped Kyle Korver in the all-time list of shooting. In my
What?
opinion, we should all stop what we're doing and appreciate greatness.
It
Okay.
sounds like greatness for himself. That's like thinly veiled at himself. That's weird. Why? Yeah, I don't know. I guess if trophies are your thing, like relics, and it seems a little weird though. I can't help but lose a little bit of respect just for that. It's like, why are grown men fighting over basketball? No, it's my ball. No, it's my ball. Just like let the man have the ball either side and shut up.
As we've discussed, I can't watch Damian Lillard play basketball anymore. It breaks my heart. It makes me feel angry. I can't explain it exactly. It's not rational, but I just can't watch Bucks games this year. But watching that post game made me remember why I've loved Damian Lillard for so long, because the look on his face was just exactly what I would look like if I was watching someone go completely off the handle over nothing. Like he was losing respect for Giannis too. He won't say that publicly, but I saw it in his eyes. And yeah, Dame's a good superstar. He doesn't care about that kind of stuff. He just wants to tell people good game and go home. So yeah,
I want to
it
touch
was
on this.
something to
I want to
watch.
touch on this before we leave, even though it's not NBA related, but the Patrick Mahomes thing. That's the one that upset me more because the scene of him like red faced, not coming out of his nose, crying to Josh Allen as Josh Allen like walked over, had no idea what was going on about the call that was clearly correct. That was just such a bad look for Patrick Mahomes. I thought Josh Allen's like running over to shake hands with his greatest contemporary, his best rival. He's like, I finally got a win over Patrick Mahomes, and then Mahomes is acting like a just crying.
Like that call was terrible. Um, as a
Petulant
Chargers fan,
children.
Oh, bro, don't even talk about the Chargers right now.
No,
Ooh.
but hey, it's okay. The spotlight's on Mahomes right now. I've always known Patrick Mahomes a little crybaby, little B. So I'm glad all the world gets to see it. Patrick Mahomes will throw a ball down the field, underthrow it. His receiver will try and come back and get it, but it's underthrown, and then the refs will bail him out every play with a flag. So I'm glad the world gets to see Mahomes crying to the refs like he does every game, up and down the field, his whole career. Go back and watch the tape. He's a big crybaby.
runs over to runs over to Josh Allen and is like, I don't have the best two receiving threats in the league anymore. It's bullshit. I need the rest. I need the two best receivers in the league for my entire career. All right, I'm gonna stop going in on Patty because he's pretty good. He's a pretty good football player, but that was a weird look. All right, I think we are gonna wrap her up. Like we said at the top of the show, put in the comments what you guys want to see. More general NBA discussion as we did in the second half of the show. More Blazers focused stuff, which we've been doing every week. Or something else. Maybe more time travel videos. Let us know if you missed the time travel videos. Thank you guys so much for watching From the Logo. We'll see you next time.
Bye.